Welcome to PCM Bite Size, a series of short, informative videocasts with experts in their field. The theme for today's session is the world in 2020, payments in Europe and Eurasia. Each year, PCM researchers undertake primary research across 33 countries in Europe and 10 countries in Eurasia. These reports give a market-leading and comprehensive picture of the digital and card payment ecosystems, as well as the hard data and statistics to back up that narrative. I'd like to introduce our expert for the day, Victoria Conroy. Vicky is the lead researcher and editor of PCM's digital and card payment yearbooks. Vicky, welcome.
Thank you, Alex.
So let's just jump straight into it, and we can't really avoid talking about COVID. So this year's yearbook include data from 2020, which shows just how much COVID-19 has affected the consumer payment habits and how it's affected in a very short space of time. What are the kind of emerging trends, at a very high level? Who would you say the winners and the losers are from the last year's data?
Well, it's no secret that banks, payment networks and governments have been working to drive down cash transactions in favour of non-cash electronic payments for lots of reasons like greater security and more convenience. And since the advent of contactless payments around 15 years ago now, a lot of progress has been made in persuading consumers about the benefits of contactless. And if you look at the UK, for example, last year, in 2019, the number of contactless transactions rose by 16% to reach 8.6 billion payments in total. And at the end of 2019, there were 132 million contactless cards in circulation, with 85% of debit cards and 74% of credit cards in the UK having contactless functionality. In mid-2020, research showed that a third of UK adults were already avoiding using cash because of the risk of COVID. And contactless and online payments are now outstripping the use of banknotes and coins. If we look at Italy, the number of contactless card payments was less than 3% of the total card payments in 2014 and was estimated to be 30% of all card payments at the end of 2019. Data showed that in 2019, contactless payments rose from 40.5 billion in 2018 to 63 billion in 2019, which is a rise of 56%. Looking at Poland, that's in the group of countries with the highest level of contactless cards use in the world. In 2019, the number of payment cards with a contactless function reached 37.1 million, which represented a 1.1 million rise on the mid-2019 figures. Currently, contactless cards constitute nearly 86.7% of all payment cards in Poland. But there are still lots of people who are worried about using contactless, who are confused about how it works, who still prefer to use cash for all sorts of reasons. But what nobody anticipated was this global pandemic and just how much that would impact how people make low-value payments in such a fundamental way. Just the simple act of handing over banknotes and coins in a shop is now affected by the risk of catching COVID-19. Nobody wants to be touching a PIN pad in a busy shop or train station and so on and risk catching COVID. So this is where contactless really demonstrates its benefits. There's no contact, no risk. It makes for speedy and secure transactions through your bank card or phone. It's much safer for consumers and for merchants who don't want to be handling cash, banknotes, coins, and so on. And the payment networks and banks really took quick action to encourage more contactless transactions. In March of 2020, contactless limits were doubled in several countries around the world, as is detailed in the yearbooks. And this has helped consumers to make a wider range of contactless payments in many more places. And although the yearbooks don't have complete data for 2020, you can see in several country profiles that we've been able to include data from March to June 2020, showing just how rapidly the pandemic has impacted low-value payments. And 2020 may very well be the year that the world was converted to contactless. According to the European Central Bank, looking at non-cash payments overall, in the euro area, non-cash payments increased by 8.1% to 98 billion in 2019 compared with the previous year, for a total value of 162.1 trillion euros. Card payments accounted for 48% of that total. And the figures for 2020 are likely to be far higher if the PCM yearbook data is anything to go by. As of mid-2020, if we look at Russia, contactless in-store transactions were already above 53% in Russia compared to 45% in 2019. Some 36% of Russians made contactless payments with smartphones compared to 13% in the year before. And this is largely due to the impact of Covid-19. If you look at Ukraine, for example, the share of non-cash payments there between January and June 2020 increased to 55.1%. And in other countries in the Eastern European region, in Serbia, for example, card-based e-commerce purchases in the second quarter of 2020, the number of transactions shot up by 105.59% compared to the same quarter in 2019. The value of these transactions rose by 77.9% compared to the second quarter of 2019. And even if we look at established mature markets in Western Europe, COVID-19 will drive more payments away from cash for sure. In Germany in 2020, 50% of all payments on Girocard cards were made in 2020, which were contactless. In addition, contactless credit card payments made in 2020 amounted to around 70% of the total credit card payments by number. So overall, if you're looking at the big winners to come out of this year's yearbook data, it's definitely the payment players which are pushing contactless and safe, secure payments at the POS, which is really starting to take a bite out of low-value cash payments across the whole of Europe.
It's pretty amazing, that, isn't it? Absolutely sensational figures in terms of the rise and rise of contactless. And I note as well today that I saw something that up to 30% of merchants in the UK now are actually barring people from using cash. And it wasn't so long ago that you used to walk into shops and people had the sign saying cash only, no cards, and now we're seeing the same sign back to front, no cash, card only. So fascinating stuff. Vicky, I think I want to say thank you very much for all the hard work. I know it's a enormous product that we build, and it takes a lot of time and effort to put it together. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for your time today. You've been our bite-sized hero, and look forward to speaking to you again about the yearbooks.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Alex.